Today, on an all-new View, Rose Garden Rally. The wildest moments from the presidential press conference. And did he make some off-color comments about police shooting stats in America?
Why are African Americans still dying at the hands of law enforcement in this country?
And so are white people. So are white people.
Oh my, what did he just say? A truth teller? What? Stop the press. Are you everybody, all systems go, no penny spared. We need to squash this truth. CBS, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, all the media, big tech, Facebook, Google, everybody, all systems go. We need to squash this truth. Hey everyone, welcome to Media Decoded, a channel dedicated to bringing truth to light and decoding the narrative being set forth by both the media and big tech. If you enjoy this kind of content, I implore you to comment, like, and subscribe to help this channel grow. YouTube will never recommend or push these videos. Instead, they will try to stifle them. So it's only through your help that we can continue to decode the media and bring truth to power. Again, I thank you for watching and welcome you to Media Decoded.
Why are African Americans still dying at the hands of law enforcement in this country?
And so are white people. So are white people. What a terrible question to ask. So are white people. More white people, by the way. More white people.
Well, this is a lot to unpack here, but I guess it will come as a surprise to white people to hear that they are being killed more often.
A surprise? Actually, for those of us in the know, all the figures and data have been there, and we've been waiting to hear the truth from some outlet, any outlet. Give us the truth, not something predicated on gut feeling and false media narratives. I can't wait to see what she brings forth as evidence, because this is absolutely mind-blowing.
Even though this Harvard study seems to have found that blacks are 3 times as likely to be killed by police than whites.
Oh, there it is. Quote, this Harvard study. Now, mind you, she doesn't tell you how this Harvard study came up with this statistic. She doesn't cite the reference so you can look it up yourself. She keeps it from you and simply touts that blacks are 3 times more likely to die by cops than whites. Well, lucky for us, I've done my homework. I found this Harvard study, and here it is. It was a study conducted from 2013 to 2017, which states that the total number of police shootings was around 5,500. What it doesn't tell you is the raw data, just how many whites and how many blacks were actually killed by cops in this time period. Let's take a look at the government statistics and then come back to this Harvard study. So here you can see during the same period where there were roughly 5,500 police killings, only 1,600 were black. And oh, wouldn't you know it, nearly twice as many whites killed by cops in that same period, nearly 3,000. So clearly we have the raw, unskewed data that backs up Trump's statement that more whites are actually killed by cops than blacks. A lot more. Twice as many. So he told the truth. Good for him. Seems like no one else has the guts to. Now that we've seen the raw data, let's get back to the Harvard study. You see, in the Harvard study, what they do is they take the raw data and then they skew it by introducing another factor, population, which is, by the way, not the most important factor to bring in when looking at this study, and I'll explain that later. But for now, when we bring in population, the data skews because blacks are only 13% of the population, while whites are 70%. So now that we've introduced this new factor, it does in fact show that blacks are 3 times more likely to die from police. But since we are introducing new factors into the equation, let's introduce another factor, the most important one, violent crime. First, let me explain why if we are going to skew the raw data, which has significantly whites getting killed more often, it isn't population, but violent crime as the factor that should be introduced to get a more accurate picture regarding over or under representation. Let me explain. Let's take a hypothetical population which consists of 90% orange people that are all in a coma and 10% green people who were fully functional. Since the orange population is incapable of committing violent crimes because they're in a coma, the green population would therefore be committing 100% of the crime by definition. Now, if the police had killed 10 green people and 0 orange people in any given year, we would never make our assessment of that society that there is a police problem because only green people are getting killed. What we would do is the logical thing and look at who's committing the violent crimes and disconcern ourselves with the actual population numbers because they're irrelevant. It's only the violent crime that matters when looking at this type of data. Knowing this, let's take a look at the murder-homicide stats in America on any given year. I've looked up years of this data and the numbers are the same year in and year out. You can see that although whites are 70% of the population and blacks are 13, the 13% actually commits more murders, 5,000 to 4,000. This is the raw data. So let's give Whoopi and the Harvard study the benefit of the doubt by allowing them to bring in other factors to skew the data, and in turn, we'll bring in a more important factor to get a more accurate picture. If blacks, who are roughly 10% of the population, commit 5,000 murders, we have a ratio that for every 10% of the population, there are 5,000 murders, roughly. What this means is that since whites are 7 times greater in population, if whites were committing murders at the same rate as blacks, their murder total would be roughly 35,000. But it's not. It's 4,000. What this means is that a black person in the USA is 9 times more likely to murder than a white person. Now, I know this sounds harsh and I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I believe there are deep-seated reasons for these cultural problems we have in our inner cities. I suspect at some point I'll take a deep dive into these reasons, some of which are society's fault, in a future video. But none of those reasons for why black murder rates in America are so high right now are relevant here. What we are looking at here is the number of people being killed by police and who they are. So when we hear stats like blacks are 3 times more likely to be killed by police, we have to juxtapose that with the fact that blacks are 9 times more likely to murder. And when we do, we actually have blacks being underrepresented when it comes to police killings. So there you have it, the raw data. Whites are killed twice as much by police than blacks. True that whites are a larger sector of the population, but also true that the rate of murder and violent crimes is 9 times greater in the black community when introducing population. So if we want to start bringing up population into our raw data, that leaves us where we are. Trump being absolutely correct in his statement. In fact, on every level and no matter how you look at it, more whites are killed by police, both unarmed and armed, by the way. More whites are killed by police. The thing is that we just don't ever hear about it. So it doesn't fit the narrative of the national media. So over the years, here we are. For every one person you see on TV that's unarmed and murdered by a white cop that's kneeling on his neck, there's been 2 that have been white that were unarmed and a cop killed them by kneeling on his neck. But they never put that forth. The narrative has to be make America divided, get people angry. And they're succeeding. And they're succeeding because people are choosing to stay blind instead of digging into the facts and knowing where they stand before shows like this come and preach to you. Let's go on.
I mean, so I'm not sure what he's looking at, but what do you take away from this, Joy?
Who knows what he's looking at? I'd say he's looking at exactly what we're looking at. The raw data, the truth. How have you not seen this? Why are you not presenting this raw data? Do you have Google, Whoopi? Or are you intentionally ignoring the real data and trying to shift the framework of the conversation in order to support your skewed statistic from some quote-unquote Harvard study? It just makes me sick. Anyway, let's hear what Joy has to say.
Well, first of all, white people are not being killed because they're white.
Joy, I ask you, what specific evidence do you have that the blacks who have been killed by police were killed because they were black? I'll answer that for you. None. Not only this, but Joy, do you realize that a good percentage of blacks killed by cops were killed by black cops? I mean, I hate to name call, but honestly, your idiocy never ceases to surprise me.
Okay, in Nazi Germany, Jews were being killed because they were Jewish. Specifically, it has nothing to do with anything but their religion or their color. That's what we're talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's true. Jews were killed because there were Jews, and there's strong evidence for it. But again, there is zero evidence to suggest that the blacks that have been killed by police were killed because they were black. I think it's you that has no idea what you're talking about. Now let's move on to our next panelist, big brain in chief, Sonny.
Son, you heard him claim that more white people are killed by police violence, which, again, I think is going to come as a shock to white people. I don't think they are aware of this.
You know, the scary thing is that she might be right about this, and I find this fact absolutely disturbing, and you should too. The fact that police have been killing more whites than blacks for years, and yet the populace remains completely unaware, it's honestly disturbing. But the reason the populace isn't aware is only because of shows like this and the media do their best to hide the truth. If it weren't for people doing their own research and watching videos like this, would anyone know about all the white deaths by the hand of the police? I think not. And it should bother everyone, black, white, or purple, that the media is set on distorting reality in order to anger and divide. In fact, they do such a good job at creating this propaganda that common folk not only believe it, but will argue their talking points even when faced with data like I've shown today. It's like they're blind and they just want to stay blind. For the life of me, I'll never understand it. And what makes this all so much worse, look at Whoopi's flippant attitude. You know for a fact she's got to be aware of the real data. Otherwise, she's just completely ignorant, right? So it's either incompetence or deceit, one of the other. It has to be one of those. And look at how she laughs about it, how sarcastic. She just blows it off. If you believe this, you are just. It is the stupidest thing she's ever heard. Meanwhile, it's the factual truth, and it just is so. I keep using the word. It's disgusting. But let's move on. I digress.
But you know that the stats tell a different story. Yes, Sonny?
Yeah, I mean, and as you said, Whoopi, I mean, most people do know the stats.
Well, we hope most people do know the stats, but I frankly don't think they do. Fortunately, those of you watching this video and those of you who have done your own homework, you know the stats.
And the other thing that you've heard him say very often is that why don't black people talk about black on black crime? And I hear that so much in conservative circles. And what people need to understand is that, homicides are intra-racial. When you look at white on white crime, it's 84%. Right? Homicides, white people kill white people. But that term white on white crime is never used. So why is black on black crime used? I don't understand it.
Oh, you don't understand? Well, good thing I'm here to help. Good thing I'm here. But before I get into all of this, look at this girl's face. This whole talk about black on black crime and not white on white crime is driving her crazy. Unreal. Well, let me learn you something, Sonny, that I honestly have a hard time believing you don't already know. But that's fine. Like I said before, you're all either incompetent or deceitful. I usually lean toward deceitful most of the time, but based on your takes, I actually might believe you are that stupid. White on white murder is nearly non-existent and pales in comparison to black on black murder, which is completely out of control. Black men, who make up less than 7% of the country's population, are responsible for nearly 60% of the murders in the United States, making them 9 times more likely to kill another black man as a white man is to kill another white man. This is why we talk about black on black crime, because it's a huge problem in the black community, where it's hardly a problem in the white population at all. You see, the glorification of gang culture in black communities has led to rampant crime and murder. In these areas, a small percentage of blacks hold their cities hostage through their crime, destroying opportunities for the other blacks in the community, intelligent, decent, and well-intentioned blacks, which are the majority, by the way, are getting their kids shot on almost a nightly basis by these gangbangers. So yeah, The completely insignificant white-on-white murder based per population has nothing to do with the problems that the black-on-black crime is for their own communities and for the country. You know, sorry, I get a little worked up. Let's keep moving.
It drives me nuts as someone who's been involved in the law enforcement community my entire career.
Yeah.
Oh my God, are you an idiot?
Megan, what were the options? I don't even know where to start with this question.
No, she's
where
right,
were the,
though.
what,
like, it is an important point that, like, most violence, that racial violence happens interracially between white-on-white people, black-on-black people. It actually, you're completely right, and I don't understand why it's not something that's spoken about in all sections of our society. So it's a really valid point.
It's a really valid point? Are you freaking kidding me? This is from the conservative on the panel. Like I said, no pushback anywhere. So let me explain this. Intra-race killing doesn't speak to a problem. It's how many intra-race killings are happening. So just because whites kill other whites, it's meaningless if there aren't many being killed. The reason black-on-black killings are the problem is because there are so many of them. This is the issue. She actually agrees with this line of thinking, therefore emboldening the false narrative. But this is what I've been witnessing lately. A movement that is based on a complete lie being perpetuated by seemingly the entire country. Is there anyone that's going to stand up for the truth? Doesn't look like it. Looks like it's up to the online community to get as much truthful information out there as we can. Because it appears to be pretty clear to me. Big business, big tech, the media, the Democratic Party, and now it seems even the Republican Party, are kowtowing to a narrative that has no basis in fact. Challenge it, and you're a racist. You lose your job. You're chastised. This for merely questioning what we're being force-fed. Men like Terry Crews are being chastised online, while the Nick Cannons of the world are getting jobs with P. Diddy and gaining followers. And to cap this all off, I really want to talk about the point of this video. You know, as I rewatched it, I feel like I get a little too excited sometimes and it weakens my point. Well, I want you to know the point of this video is not to cry and whine about all the whites that have been killed by cops. It's simply to point out the fact that police brutality has been an issue in America for as long as I've been alive. I've seen countless videos of cops laughing at a white guy while he's drowning, kneeling on one's back while he's handcuffed until he dies, and all the while he's saying he can't breathe. So being aware of this and seeing how the mainstream media never shows it, only showing when it happens to a black person, I understand that they are doing this for a reason. By race baiting and by showing only blacks being picked on by police, it leads to a narrative that it's true and that only the police are targeting blacks and they're killing blacks because like this is their narrative and it couldn't be further than the truth. The problem is this propaganda works, and it's destroying our country and dividing us. This is the greatest country in the world and the least racist country in the world. It's why everyone wants to come here. But if I didn't do any research and just watch TV for my news, I would believe that cops hate blacks and blacks hate cops. And I don't think either is the case. But we have to keep the truth out there so this false media narrative doesn't continue to divide. And that's the thing with this particular topic. I mean, this is the basis for the entire George Floyd BLM movement, right? The trigger for that was watching the cops murder George Floyd, which they absolutely did, and they'll go to jail for it justifiably. But that was the trigger, right? So if this police brutality narrative, where it's disproportionately and really only toward blacks, is proven false, what does that mean for their narrative? So you see how vehemently they are going to defend this. When meanwhile, we all know, if we've done our homework, cop culture is bad. Look, not all cops are bad. Cops are great. Thank God for the cops. Don't defund the cops. You know what I mean? Train them better. Give them more money, right? So that's not where I'm going with this, but cop culture has been bad with no accountability for a very long time. And look, that's human nature. It's not because of bad cops, human nature. You put some people in charge of the rules and you throw them out to any society, and eventually that kind of culture is going to become us against them because they're constantly facing the worst that society has to offer. So there's lots that goes into police brutality and why the culture is there. Fact is, it's there and it can be fixed. It can be fixed with putting more money into police, more police training. And I don't know. I'm getting off into a different subject now. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to let you go. But before I go, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you like this content, this type of content, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. YouTube will never help me get this message out. So once again, I thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining Media Decoded. Larry Elder, take us out.
What exactly is going on with all of this police brutality against black people? Can we hold the phone? According to the Washington Post, last year in 2019, there were 9 unarmed black men killed by the police by gunshot. Now there were 15 altogether. There were 19 white unarmed men killed by firearms, and presumably that number was somewhat higher when you add up those who were killed without guns. The point is, in recent years, at least as many unarmed whites have been killed by the cops as have been unarmed blacks. But when an unarmed white gets killed by the cop, nobody cares. No Van Jones, no Don Lemon, no CNN, no MSNBC hee-haw, and it gives you such an unfair and distorted picture about what's going on. Last year, there were roughly 15,000 homicides in this country. Half of the victims were black. Almost all of those homicide black victims were killed by other blacks, mostly young blacks. It is a huge problem within the inner city crime. Take Chicago. Chicago is a city that's a third black, a third white, a third Hispanic. Yet 70% of the homicides in Chicago are black on black